We're making kombucha today, this super awesome fermented drink. So it's a really good alternative to pop. When you drink pop, you're usually looking for that really good carbonation. Kombucha can do that with less sugar, less chemicals, and a lot cheaper. So you can buy kombucha at the store anywhere from $4 to $6 on the shelf. Super expensive. So this is a Health Aid pomegranate. It's okay, but the thing about making kombucha at home is you can flavor it however you want. You can make it sweet, you can make it savory, you can make it less vinegary. You can make coffee kombucha and you're not spending an arm and a leg. You can make a gallon for about 50 cents. Crazy cheap. Once you have all the kind of necessities you need, so let's get into what you need to make kombucha. A gallon glass jar, a scoby, which I'll get into later, don't worry. Loose leaf tea, or you can get the pre-packaged little bags of tea. About 8 of these, or a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of loose leaf tea. Something to hold your tea in, a tablespoon or a teaspoon. About a cup of sugar. You're gonna need about, let's say, 7 cups of water, but we'll get into that once we get into the container a little bit. Sometimes it's more eyeballing depending on how big your SCOBY is and how much starter tea you're using. Also starter tea, which I'll get into in a minute as well. We're gonna do this in steps. So we're gonna make the tea, then we're gonna make the kombucha, and then we're gonna go into bottling the kombucha. So it's just gonna be a process because there's a lot of little tasks to do, but in the end it's super simple. So to make the kombucha tea to start with, you're gonna wanna use your loose leaf tea. I do about a tablespoon and a half. You can also use green tea if you want a little less caffeine. I always prefer black tea more. Once you get into it, you can start experiment with coffee. You can experiment with mixed tea or teas with flavor. A lot of people that brew kombucha say you can't do that, but a lot of people have proven them wrong. Our water's boiling on the stove right now. Try to stay away from plastics when you're using hot liquids, and try to stay away from plastics in general. So as you're fermenting your kombucha, you always want to use glass because you don't want those little gross particles to get into your kombucha tea. So as you can see, I'm just using a ceramic bowl. I have my tea in, and we're gonna add 4 cups of water. You need to have this to be like a spring water, a natural water. Try not to use tap water. It has a lot of lead, fluoride, chlorine. You don't want that in your kombucha. It's bad for you and it's bad for the SCOBY. It will kill the SCOBY. I'm scared to talk about the SCOBY because I feel like it's gonna scare you guys off, to be totally honest. We're gonna brew this tea for however long your tea says. So if it says 3 minutes, 3 minutes. If it says 4 minutes, 4 minutes. Listen, you're also gonna want to get the water up to temp. So not boiling, but hot. It's been 4 minutes. So you're gonna take your tea bag out. You're gonna kind of want to strain it a little bit, get all the little tea juice out from it. It's really hot, so you don't want to mess with it right now. You want it to cool down for a little bit. You're gonna want to add your sugar. It says to a cup. You can go from a half to a cup. However much sugar you want to add. We have our sugar in there. We want to make sure it's completely dissolved, so just keep mixing it up until you don't see any more of the little sugar crystals on your fork. Then we're going to let it cool for anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. We don't want this too hot. So our tea has started to cool down. You're going to want to take some water. Remember, not tap water, and we're going to add it into our tea. If you're patient, you can wait. You can leave it on the counter and just make, a whole batch of tea. So at the end, it's going to be about 8 cups with our starter tea. So let's get into this. I feel like I'm a little confusing. I'm new at this, guys. I'm really trying. In here, we have our SCOBYs and we have our starter tea. If you get a SCOBY and you don't have starter tea, you can go to a store and buy a bottle of kombucha pre-made. Try to find one that's organic and all natural and that doesn't have fruit added. So we'll say something like original kombucha. So it's not fruit added. You can make your own SCOBY by fermenting it on the countertop for 2 to 3 weeks, and a little SCOBY will form. Let me wash my hands and I'll show you a SCOBY up close. I'm finally going to talk about what a SCOBY is. It's a symbiotic culture of bacteria. You guys are saying that's so gross. It's bacteria. I know, honey, it's bacteria, but it's a good bacteria. It's the bacteria that you want in your gut for good gut health. We're going to take our SCOBYs out. There's gonna be like yeasty little things hanging from our SCOBYs. Don't be scared. It's good. It's not bad. As long as it's not white or green. I have a little SCOBY forming on top here. As you can see, a little bit gross, I know. We're just gonna plop that in our glass container. These are the SCOBYs that I purchased online. Tiny little spheres. Totally okay. You can still brew kombucha even though they're this small. And we got one more bad boy in here. Excellent. We're also going to add a cup of tea to these SCOBYs. I need to wash my hands again because they're covered in SCOBY. This is a SCOBY, guys. It's pretty sick looking, right? It's slimy. It's like a big old eye booger or something. This will grow and grow and grow, and it will give you so many SCOBYs. So now that you have your SCOBY and your kombucha starter tea, you're gonna wanna add your typical sweet tea. So all this is sweet tea. So if you find some organic sweet tea, follow the directions and make anywhere from 6 to 8 cups, depending on your container size. Honestly, you can eyeball it. As long as you're being sterile and sanitary, your kombucha is gonna do all the work for you. So now that your tea is cooled down, you're gonna add it to your starter. If it's a gallon jar, you're gonna wanna fill it all the way up with water, guys. And now we just wait. So we'll be back in 7 days to taste the kombucha and see if it's fermented enough. You'll also see a lot of little bubbles start forming around the rim. I don't know if it's gonna come in shot, but there's tiny bubbles all underneath the SCOBY forming. That means your kombucha is doing what it needs to do. So it's been about a week, so now we wanna taste our tea to see if it's ready to start bottling. So this is what you need a plastic straw for. So you're gonna put the straw into the corner, push down a little bit. There will be a new SCOBY forming on top. Cover it up immediately. There's little critters flying around that you cannot see that wanna get into your SCOBY. Taste it. Is it vinegary enough? If not, let it keep fermenting. The more it ferments, better probiotics. But the more it ferments, the worse it kind of tastes. It gets a vinegary feel to it. So our kombucha is now ready. We're gonna take about a cup of our kombucha and leave it out for our next batch. This way you don't have to go out and buy more kombucha. You'll already have it on hand waiting for you for the next batch. About a cup. There we go. I'm gonna actually put this to the side and cover it up because I see critters flying around. I'm going to be flavoring my kombucha with a raspberry orange mix. It sounds super delicious to me. I've not made this combination before. I've done blue raspberry before, and I've also done raspberry limeade, which is my all-time favorite so far. You don't have to flavor your kombucha, and you do not have to do a second ferment. The second ferment, all this does is gives it that bubbly carbonation. And if you're not looking for that, if you're just looking for a really good kombucha, skip this step. You don't have to do it. But honestly, it makes kombucha so much more fun to drink. So what I have in here is about a cup of raspberries and 2 little clementines. So we're gonna go blend this up and kind of make this slushy mixture to add to the bottom of our containers. Add our raspberry orange to each of our containers. Now this is also up to you. Do you want more flavor of raspberry orange or more flavor of kombucha? So you can add just a tiny bit or half the bottle. It's gonna take on the flavor no matter what. It's just not gonna be as strong or sweet. The sweeter it is, typically the more carbonated it is, because those little yeasties in there are eating off all the sugars from the fruit. and it's making CO2. It's carbonating your drink. So I usually only do about a third, sometimes less if I want more kombucha. So I can spread it out more bottles, because I'll drink 1 bottle a day. I'll start drinking more once I can get more productive on my kombucha train. So get yourself one of these spouts. It makes it a lot easier. And just pour a little bit in. I'm going to pour the rest of my kombucha right into the container here. And I'm going to use this to make it easier pouring in my bottles. You want to fill up pretty high. You want to leave a little air left so that can carbonate and expand, but not too much. The reason I like these flip top containers is I feel like it lets out a little bit of air so it doesn't explode. I have firsthand experience exploding kombucha, but it was the fault of my own, not the container. So that, my friends, is how you make kombucha. So I hope I explained it enough, but not too much. So if you have any questions, just comment down below or message me. Also, Pinterest has some amazing recipe ideas as well, if you're new to this. And if you're a little worried about measurements, don't be. You need to be more worried about how sterile things are. Your kombucha will thrive, your scoby will thrive as long as it's in a clean, sterile area. The kombucha will keep growing, your tea will keep fermenting. So what you got out of this is sweet tea, scoby, and starter tea. And that is how you make some really delicious kombucha.